My job tonight is to keep us on schedule and to make sure that everyone stays who makes comments stays within their time limits and to be neutral. So I'm ready to get started. Panel ready to get started? Excellent. I'd like to introduce everyone at the table. We have first to my immediate left is Justin Inworth, who's the Restore Council Executive Director. Next to him is Commissioner Gunter Guy, who's the Commissioner for Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Next to the Commissioner is Amy Whitten, who's the Mississippi representative for the Council. Next to Amy is Ben Skaggs, who's EPA representative and also the Director for the EPA Gulf of Mexico program. Next to Ben is Debbie DeVoe, who's with U.S. Department of Interior. And next to Debbie is Charles Ramsey with U.S. Department of Agriculture. With that, I would like to turn the microphone over to Commissioner Guy to make some opening remarks.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Glad to have you here. On behalf of Governor Bentley and the Alabama Department of Conservation and myself, I want to welcome everyone to the Restore Council listening session tonight. I appreciate everyone being here. Look forward to some really good comments. I also want to thank a lot of my federal and state partners, and let me say friends, who are here tonight also to attend our listening session to gain more from what we have to say here in Alabama, and for those that are here from maybe another state, what y'all have to say in regard to our comprehensive plan. I would like to just take a minute. I think we got a few folks here I'd like to recognize. Is Representative Randy Davis here? Randy, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Randy. Good to see you. Randy's, as everyone knows, is very involved in what we do down here on the coast, and I'm always very appreciative for his help with the Department of Conservation. I know Mayor Kraft is here. Mayor Kraft is here. Thank you, Mayor. Also, very helpful and always a good friend to Ben Desir, as well as Mayor Collier. Mayor Collier, where are you? Mayor Collier, thank you for being here tonight. I also want to recognize Ms. Aliska Morgan, who's here on behalf of Congress of Honor's Office. Aliska, thank you very much for being here. And I hope I haven't missed anyone other than to say lots of other good friends and partners that are here tonight. I want to thank y'all for being here and being a part of this. So, with that being said, I want us to get on with our business. And what I would like to do is to once again recognize Justin Ehrenworth. That's a tough name, Justin.
It's not easy.
No, it's not, that's not a good Southern name. We have to work that. Justin is my friend. I give him a hard time, and he gives me a hard time back. So that's what's great about our federal partners, and that's what's great about Justin, who was formerly the Chief of Staff for the Office of Deputy Secretary, I believe, for the U.S. Department of Commerce. But more recently, and many of you may know that he has been selected and appointed as the Executive Director of our Federal Restore Council, and we couldn't find a better person. And I want to thank him not only for what he has done with the Department of Commerce in assisting in what we're doing here, but also now to congratulate him and to tell him how much we look forward to what he's going to do and help us with in moving this Restore Council forward. And I can assure you that we've got a good person at the helm. And so I just want to ask you to welcome Justin as I bring him up, and he will talk about our comprehensive plan. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I got a little nervous when he started saying, you know, I've had this last name of mine my whole life, so you know, it's hard to spell, and you know, it's been a challenge, and the different ways that I've heard it pronounced are probably too many to count. But I really appreciate your comments, and what's been so great about this job. And by the way, this is my third day on the job, so it's great to be with you on my third day officially on this. But been working on it now since the Restore Act passed. and I've been working on issues related to the spill since like so many people in this room, since it happened. But I agree completely with the commissioner and want to recognize my fellow council members. It's a great group of people. We have an absolutely unprecedented and very difficult task ahead of us, but we are really, I think, becoming a very good friends in figuring out something that's incredibly complicated and couldn't possibly be more important. So it's great to be with you tonight. Thank you for being here. My plan is to go through, we have a slide presentation, to go through a few slides that will say a little bit about the Restore Act and give some context and go through a couple of items. And my hope is to speak as briefly as possible to get through some of this material and then really turn it over to why we are here tonight, which is to hear from you. So I hope that you've had a chance to look at the draft comprehensive plan document that we put out a couple of weeks ago, and look forward to talking with you about it. Before getting into the slides, the word I think that talking with a few people before this meeting that really comes to mind with this is that it's such an unprecedented opportunity. It's an opportunity that comes out of the worst environmental disaster in our nation's history, and we just have to get it right. We simply need to get it right, and in order to get this opportunity, the opportunity that this council has right, we need your help. And this session is an important part of that. There'll be additional opportunities for us to hear from you, for us to get your help. So we're grateful to have you here tonight, and hope that you'll stay with us and help us get this right. I don't know. I move this to the next one. There we go. All right, overview. So this is a couple of the things that I'm hoping to cover very briefly. I'll say a little bit about the landscape. So there is the Restore Act. There are a bunch of other efforts that are ongoing right now related to Gulf restoration. Say a little bit about that. Talk briefly about the Restore Act. I know from previous meetings and conversations, there are a lot of people in this room who know a whole lot about it, so I won't dwell on that. Say a little bit about the council that we represent, and then go into some of the challenges, because we think it's important that you all understand some of the challenges that we're facing, and then really get into an overview of the draft comprehensive plan, and finally talk a little bit about some of the next steps in front of the council. So first, to some selected Gulf restoration efforts. So there's a lot of activity happening. There's been a lot before the spill, even more after. There are three up here on this slide. I'm not going to go into any detail on them, because it's dangerous when you start talking about somebody else's program, because you'll get it wrong. But I wanted to put this up here to say something first before getting into any one specific program. When it comes to ecosystem restoration, the ecosystem doesn't care if the money to restore it comes from the Restore Act, comes from the NERDA process, comes from the National Fish and Wildlife Federation, or any other source. And what is so important for our effort and for all of these efforts is we have to be closely coordinated. And so we are talking with our partners, those who are listed up on this slide, and others, to make sure that we're not duplicating, we're not reinventing the wheel, and we're not, most importantly, doing something in one effort that would undermine the work that's happening in another. And that's very important, is a big focus of all of ours in these at this stage in the process. But very briefly, the Natural Resources Damage Assessment, the Trustee Council, many people here are familiar with it. Their job is to assess the injury and to restore natural resources. And it's a very particular and important process that's ongoing, and many of our council members are really leading that process. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, as I'm sure many of you know, received around about $2.5 billion in criminal plea agreement money with BP and Transocean for their role in the spill. And it's important to stress there that NIFWIF money is based on the criminal side of the equation. What the Restore Council and the Restore Act that's about the civil side of the equation. So NIFWIF is working on ecosystem restoration, natural resource restoration work with the monies that they got from those criminal agreements. The National Academy of Sciences has about $500 million to do some human health work, also some environmental restoration work. So there's a lot more that could be said about all of them, and I encourage you to understand what they're doing and attend some of the meetings that they're putting on. There are a lot of meetings. I know people here have been coming to a lot of meetings, so it is a really important part of the process. So briefly on the Restore Act. The Restore Act was it really represents a tremendous bipartisan accomplishment. And it came out of Washington, D.C. in a time where you don't see a lot of tremendous bipartisan accomplishments. So this is something that we couldn't be more excited about. It represents such an opportunity. But what it really does is it takes 80% of the civil monies, the Clean Water Act penalties, and I'll have a slide in a second that shows sort of how the money moves, but takes 80% of it and puts it into a trust fund for us to do some work that I'll describe in a minute. The second bullet I'm going to come back to a couple of times because it's so important and makes our collective effort here so difficult, I think. The uncertainty that exists around the ultimate amount of money and when we're going to have it. It's very difficult to do a planning process when you don't know how much money you're ultimately going to have and you don't know when you're going to have it. We're all closely watching what's happening in court in New Orleans right now, the trial, the BP trial. As you know, it's in between phases right now, and what happens in that trial is just so important to what happens here because it will have a huge impact on how much money we have and when we have it. So that's something that we will come back to. And then the last bullet up here notes that there was a settlement with Transocean, which is a really important thing for our effort, for $1 billion, which to the equation would mean that $800 million comes into the Restore Trust Fund over a period of years. But that's certainly an important piece of the puzzle. Unfortunately, it's not the final piece of the puzzle. So this slide here, and I think there's even a pointer. I don't know if you can see this in the back, but I'll use this little laser dot. This shows how the money moves through the Restore framework. So this part up here with Clean Water Act penalties, call that 100%. So with the Transocean example, so this would be $1 billion. 20% of it goes off the top to the Oil Spill Liability Trust Fund. And before Restore, 100% would just go into this trust fund. With the Restore Act, 80% of it goes into this Gulf Restoration Trust Fund. And then that amount of money gets cut up into, we call it, and there's a big debate over what you call this. I call them buckets. Some people call them pots, some people call them crab traps. I'm sure there's 12 other things we can call them, but I'm going to call them buckets, and I'll go through the 5 of them. The first, and these 2 here, by the way, these are the ones where the council is involved. This one here, this first bucket, is 35% of the ultimate pie here, gets divided up among the five Gulf Coast states for ecosystem restoration and other projects. The bucket right here, 30% for the council to do ecosystem restoration. This is what we're most focused on this evening, as well as this piece here. But the comprehensive plan that we've put out has a very important role in this bucket. It also has a role in this one as well. But this is really, I think, what we'll spend the bulk of our time on tonight. Excuse me. This next 30% is what we call the state expenditure plan bucket. So each of the 5 states will write up a state expenditure plan, and they'll submit that plan to the council for its consideration and approval. And in a slide or two, I'll say a little bit about what is to be expected in those state expenditure plans. Finally, there are 2 smaller buckets here, but incredibly important because of the task we have. They both involve science. The first 2.5% bucket plus interest, both of these have interest off the trust fund here. The first 2.5% bucket here is for a science monitoring program that the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration is to run. And the second 2.5% bucket here is for a Centers of Excellence program across the 5 states, that each state would have a Center of Excellence that would assist with scientific research and other pieces that I think will be very important to the entire framework here. So that's a quick overview of the 5 buckets and how the money flows through the framework. Now to the council. It's composed of 6 federal agencies and 5 states. The 5 states, of course, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. And the 6 federal agencies, the Department of Agriculture, the Army, and the group in the Army that's most involved is the Army Corps of Engineers, the Commerce Department, Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Interior, and then the Department of Homeland Security, and in Homeland Security, the Coast Guard is the one that's been most involved. The Department of Commerce, the Secretary of Commerce was selected as the chair of the council back last fall, and has been really active in helping to organize the council. So that's the membership. Next to the challenges, and we think it's really important to note these and to just be really upfront with you about some of the things that the council's facing and things that we're moving forward with despite. So first, I would say it again, and here it is, the uncertainty. Again, we don't know how much money we're going to have or when we're going to have it. That makes this much more difficult. The second piece of it, it's listed up here as the current fiscal environment. Times are tough when it comes to state and local budgets. They're certainly tough when it comes to Washington, D.C. federal agencies with the sequestration. So it impacts us for all the reasons you would expect. It also impacts us because as a council, at the moment, we have a budget of 0, which makes our work much more difficult. The expression in Washington is you're doing it all out of hide. All of our activities are being done out of existing funds, and those funds are going down because of all the budget challenges. So that makes our work difficult. The next bullet up here is about the Treasury regulations. The Department of Treasury needs to put out some regulations that will govern how all of the money is spent in all five of those buckets. Those are going to be very important, and they're still in development. The next two bullets aren't so much challenges as really points that we think are important to mention in this context. One is that all 5 states are in differing stages in the process of developing their state expenditure plans. So that's just a reality among our council members. And the last here is, again, not so much a challenge, but really something that we feel we need. And that's additional public input, which is what we're really getting towards tonight. And there are a series of questions that we're particularly interested to hear your views about. So a little bit about what's actually in the draft comprehensive plan. So it was put out a couple of weeks ago. I hope you've had a chance to look at it. If not, it's on the website, and we'll have the website up on the screen for the end of the meeting. But what it does in a nutshell is it establishes 5 goals that, for those of you who saw the earlier document that the council put out, it was called our path forward. We set out 5 goals, and those goals are embraced in this draft comprehensive plan, so those will look very familiar to many of you. The draft comprehensive plan goes into how the council will solicit projects, how those projects will be evaluated, and ultimately how they're going to be funded. And I'll get into that briefly in just 1 minute. It also talks about the process that the state expenditure plans for that 3rd bucket will be reviewed and approved. And it contains a preliminary list of authorized but not yet commenced projects. And I'm going to pause on this one and talk about it for a minute because it's difficult and has been confusing to many of us. So if you went on our website, you'd see a couple of different things. You'd see a draft comprehensive plan, a draft programmatic environmental assessment document, which is very important for environmental compliance, and you'd see a 3rd thing that's called this list of authorized but not yet commenced projects. So first, let me tell you what that list is not. What the list is not is a list of projects and programs that the council is going to fund. It simply isn't. What Congress told the council in the Restore Act was it said you have to go out and put together a list of all projects that have been authorized. And the council right now has interpreted that to mean either federally authorized or authorized under some state program. So if you actually looked at the list and you looked at what programs are there and what they've been authorized under, it spells it all out. Some of them have been authorized by Congress, federally authorized. Others have been authorized by a state program. The Restore Act says that the council must put that list together. And the council did put a draft list of it, and we're interested to hear what you think of that draft. But what's really important to stress, and I hope that to the extent you're talking to other people, you can pass this on, the list does not represent programs and projects that we are going to fund. So, it's human nature. You look at the list and say, is my project on that list? That's not what this particular list is about. So just because a program's on that list doesn't mean it's funded. Just because and if a program's not on that list, it doesn't mean that it won't be funded. It's simply, at this stage, an inventory of previously authorized projects. So that's in the document. And the document also identifies a number of very important next steps, and I won't, you'll have a chance to look at it if you haven't already, so I won't read what those are, but it outlines the fact that this is really an iterative process, and this represents an important moment, and we're going to just continue to make progress as we go forward. So briefly on the 5 goals, these will look familiar to not only those who looked at the Path Forward document we put out, but also the task force process, which finished up a task force strategy document in December of 2011. It contained 4 goals, and those are the first 4 that are listed here. Number 1, restore and conserve habitat. Number 2 is about restoring water quality. The 3rd is to replenish and protect living coastal and marine resources. And the 4th is to enhance community resilience. And again, those come directly from the task force and our path forward. The 5th was added because of the Restore Act and what's it about, and that's to restore and revitalize the Gulf economy. And it's really important, I think, to stress the way in which all 5 of these goals are related to each other. And I see that some people, excuse me, have the button on that say restoring our environment restores our economy. And that's really the way in which the council sees these goals operating with one another. That when it comes to bucket 2, ecosystem restoration will surely drive economic benefit. And I have to pause and tell this short little story about the first public meeting that I participated in Biloxi. There was this beautiful young girl who was passing out these buttons. And when I gave my remarks, she, I guess, heard the beginning, but then the meeting was kind of dragging on, and I had said in my remarks, I missed her. I really wanted to get a couple of extra buttons because I appreciate those buttons so much. And she evidently had to go home because it was past her bedtime. But a week or so later, I get this letter from her in crayon saying, Mr. Justin, I heard you wanted some more buttons. Here they are. And I have that letter framed up on my wall. And she's just the best. And it's really something that we as a council take to heart. So those are the goals. Let's go next to we call the council selected restoration component. And this really is the money that's in that second bucket from the slide from a few slides ago. And the reason we have this long name of council selected restoration component is because it's a little bit different than the comprehensive plan. The draft plan has a role with buckets 2 and 3. And when we talk about the projects that the council is going to pick and fund, that's the money that's in that 30% bucket. So in any case, it's the reason for the name being a little bit different. But when number 1, general guidance on the types of projects and programs the council will fund, we make very clear here that what's to be funded in bucket 2 are ecosystem restoration projects. Again, we're quite confident that